The Andy Pollin Show.
We got to go after this with everything we got, figuring they're going to come with everything they got.
I'll start off by saying I'm bored, I'm broke, and I'm back.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630 starts right now.
It looks like the quarterback game of musical chairs will leave Kirk Cousins with his chair still in Atlanta. We'll get to that. Also, nice night for Alex Ovechkin. No Rolls Royce, but he walked away with some pretty nice gifts, as his family did as well. And I went podcast fishing yesterday and came up with a couple of really delicious ones. Let's put it that way. Some really good stuff from Jonathan Allen as he talked on the podcast called The Green Light, and also Dan Quinn, who is on something called The Glue Guys. And it's always interesting to listen to people who have left, like Allen, or people who are still here, who give you information in national podcasts rather than what you hear kind of on a day-to-day basis here. So we'll unpack that stuff. But some of it you've heard before from both Allen and Dan Quinn, but just in a different atmosphere. It sounded like they were a lot more comfortable talking to people who weren't local media. And be interesting to hear some of that coming up over the next couple of hours. The breaking news from the NFL is that Joe Flacco is going back to the Cleveland Browns. It's a one-year deal with incentives that could be worth close to $13 million. It, I guess, eliminates the possibility that they're going to either make a deal or wait for Kirk Cousins to get cut by the Falcons. And Arthur Blank, the owner of the Falcons, has said, we're not dealing him. We paid him a lot of money. We're going to have to pay him a lot of money, whether he stays or whether he goes. And he will be the backup to Michael Penix. You never know what happens over the course of a season. You want to have a good backup. And we're paying him to be here. And if we tell him he's the backup, that's what he's going to do. So that doesn't look like that's going to be a real problem. I mean, Kirk Cousins is not the type of person who's going to have a holdout or create a lot of problems. We'll just see how that unfolds. But that's kind of a surprise. And the whole Flacco thing with Cleveland, this is how nuts this stuff is. He was terrific in 2023 when Deshaun Watson got hurt, and he took the Browns to the playoffs. He was named Comeback Player of the Year. It would seem to make sense that you bring him back, but they were afraid of Deshaun Watson's ego and also afraid of the fact that the rest of the team would look at Flacco, well, Watson might be stinking it up as he did this year, and then he finally got hurt, tore his Achilles, that they didn't want to have any kind of a quarterback controversy. So Flacco spent this year with the Colts. Now he's back in Cleveland, and I don't know exactly what their plans are going to be, but I think it's entirely possible that he's their starting quarterback. Now, Watson is vowing that he's going to be back, but according to reports in the offseason, he retore the Achilles. Does that mean he won't be ready to play in September? I don't know. Those kind of things, especially as you get a little older, he's, close to 30 now, that could be a problem. But I think it makes total sense that the Flacco's going back to Cleveland and going back there on a one-year deal for his 18th year in the NFL. That guy has really milked the clock. I mean, realize that the Super Bowl that he won, the one against the 49ers, was in January of 2013. So we're almost a dozen years removed from that, and he's still playing. And he played it right because he was in the final year of his contract when he won that Super Bowl and won the MVP, and he parlayed that into a $100 million contract. I don't know how much of that he collected because there were some off-ramps on that. But, to think that he's still performing at this level in his 18th season and still with the possibility of a contract that will pay him north of $13 million or $12 million, that's impressive. That's impressive. So, we moved from that to hockey last night, and I did watch the opening ceremony for Alex Ovechkin, mainly because of what Wayne Gretzky said on Sunday when Ovechkin broke his record, that Gretzky said, well, when I got past Gordie Howe, they gave me a Rolls Royce, and kind of looked over at Ted Leonsis like, you better at least come up to that level. I think the issue is when Gretzky broke the record in 1994, they didn't have a salary cap. And now you have a cap, and so you can't give whatever they call it, improper benefits or can't go over the cap with a gift like that. I guess there's some limit, although looked like Ovi got away with a pretty good haul last night. They gave him a gold stick which I don't know what that's worth, but that's a nice thing to hang up in the house. And they gave his two sons little gold sticks, and Joe Beninati reminded them not to hit Dad in the knee with those. They also had some kind of a big mural. It's like a kind of like a not really a statue, but it's a large. It's too big to hang on a wall. Let's put it that way. I probably is going to wind up staying at the arena, but that's there. And then Ted gave out some nice jewelry and watches. His wife got a Cartier watch, and Alex and his brother-in-law or father-in-law, I guess, got Rolexes. So Ted went shopping, I guess, at some high-end stores to do all that. This was part of the ceremony hosted by Joe Beninati, who I don't know why they did this. I don't know why Joe couldn't do the game last night. They had John Walton doing the game. Well, I don't want to say all, but Joe's involvement was in about a 15-minute ceremony before the game. It seems like he could have hustled back up to the box and done it, but they left it up to John Walton, who did just fine last night. It was a 5-4 win. In a shootout, and it clinches the top seed in the East, so the Capitals will be home for as long as the Eastern Conference playoffs go, and I don't think they finish as well as Winnipeg, but, if they get to the Stanley Cup, that'll be a nice Stanley Cup Finals. That'll be a nice problem to deal with. This is this part of what went on last night at Capital One Arena, again, hosted by the longtime TV voice of the Caps, Joe Beninati.
On October 5th, 2005, we had the privilege of calling Alex's very first goal as a Washington Capital. Since then, he's produced 894 more for all of us to describe and admire. From every one of us at Monumental Sports Network and the Capitals Radio Network, it has been a privilege to cover the remarkable career of the greatest goal scorer of all time. And now for the presentation of gifts. On behalf of Alex's teammates, here to present flowers for the family, alternate captains Tom Wilson and John Carlson. On behalf of the Washington Capitals, President of Hockey Operations Brian McClellan is proud to present Alex with an engraved golden stick to commemorate his achievement as the NHL's all-time goals leader. And for Alex's two boys, Sergei and Ilya, we have golden mini sticks. Boys, we don't use those on the street, and we don't hit Daddy in the knee with those. Absolutely not. Friends, Brian McClellan is also presenting Alex with a one-of-a-kind sculptural painting by artist TYP to honor this historical achievement. This bad boy is right behind me. It's a 6-foot sculpture. It features concrete casts of Alex's skates painted on canvas, along with an actual pair of his signature yellow lace skates and a game-used stick. On behalf of the Leonsis family and the entire Capitals ownership group, Washington Capitals owner Ted Leonsis is presenting Alex and his mom with Rolex watches. And Alex's wife Nastia with a Cartier watch. Thank you, Carolina Hurricanes. Thank you, on-ice officials, for your kind attention. From the moment Alex Ovechkin stepped onto the ice, he has been an overwhelming force. He has given his all to this city, this team, and for the game. He has made an immeasurable impact on the sport in the region, starting at the grassroots level. He's inspired countless young boys and girls to play and fall in love with this game. And with 895 goals, he's broken a record that many believed would never be touched. With every goal, with each iconic celebration, he has proven no challenge is too great, no record too tall. He's our captain, in all caps, all hours. And now he's the greatest goal scorer in NHL history. One more time for the great eight, Alex Ovechkin.
Now, you'd never know it from listening to Joe B's voice, but as Scott Lynn just sent me a tweet that Joe B put out before the game, he wrote, the arena looks great tonight. Unfortunately, I've been dealing with an illness since Tuesday, and doctors advise that I do not push my voice this evening. I will be on the ice for the 895 ceremony and then hand off to John Walton, Craig Laughlin, and Al Koken. Okay, so that explains that, but... sounds like he'll be ready to go. I hope so. Ready to go. Maybe tomorrow's a national TV game, so he's not going to do it. I guess he's resting up, and I don't think they can go past the first round of the playoffs. They may not even do any of the playoff games, as far as I know. The local TV, it may be all national, but I know it's not further than the first round. But hopefully Joe B is ready to go, and they pick up again at home on Sunday. It's a home and home with Columbus. They play there tomorrow and then home against the Blue Jackets Sunday. So that's 2 of the 4 left, and I guess they finish up sometime next week and get the playoffs started again with the top seed in the East. Speaking of tweets, like what Joe B sent out last night, one of the people who does listen to this show, and I do appreciate people who listen. His name is Alan Lepore, I believe, and let me just find this. He sent me a tweet from Robert Griffin III. People who don't really understand how other people view them. It's sometimes amusing to hear what they say or see what they tweet. So Griffin today tweeted out, and he does these kind of tweets all the time, but this one is particularly what? He writes, "Stay away from people who act like a victim in a problem they created." Who does that sound like? The victim. The guy who's been walking around for the last couple of years after, essentially showing the Ravens and the rest of the NFL he couldn't play anymore. He's hurt all the time, and, when he did play, he wasn't that good. And he's saying to stay away from people who act like a victim in a problem they created. He's always playing the victim, including saying, hey, a lot of teams would like to bring me in as a backup or to compete with the starting job, but they're worried about the circus that would form around me. No, people wouldn't really care. They go, how about that? No, RG3's getting another shot. And, he created a problem at ESPN that he didn't have to create. That was an excellent opportunity for him. He was doing college football games. He was appearing on all the shouting shows, and he had a prime slot on the NFL Countdown show, which has been hosted by Scott Van Pelt the last couple of years. And he was part of that crew. And at every turn, he made it about himself. There were constant pregame things where he was racing like against a bird. When he would do college games, he would run out on the field to show everybody how fast he was. And he didn't have to do that because he's good on TV. He's a good analyst. He has good insights. But it was always about RG3. And the problem that they, in this case, he created was obsessive narcissism. It's always got to be about RG3. And when people look back on his career and they interview him about it, oh, isn't it a shame that you got hurt in Washington? You could have had such a great career. Yes, he did get hurt in Washington, but he got hurt seriously because of his narcissism. He had an injury with a few games to go in the season when he collided with Haloti Ngata. He tried to stay in the game, dragging his leg behind him to go back onto the field. Finally, they took him out. Kirk Cousins took over, got the game into overtime, and won it in OT. Griffin, who I'm told had a 4-week injury. It was a meniscus injury, and I've actually talked to an orthopedic surgeon about this, and he said, yeah, that's for even for athletes, that's a 4-week injury. He was interested in coming back without missing a game. They practiced all week without him. And they came to the Cleveland game, and I remember watching the pregame, and RG3 is running all over the field. He wasn't supposed to play that day. And Kirk Cousins was slated to start. He'd taken all the practice reps all week long. And as I'm told, RG3 and Dan Snyder went to Mike Shanahan before the game and said, okay, he's ready to start. And Shanahan said, no, I'm not going to play him. We haven't practiced him all week. No, we're going with Kirk. And for whatever led to any discussion after that, it went Shanahan's way because RG3 watched the game with his dad, and they determined that Shanahan was trying to sabotage his career so Kirk Cousins could play, and that's when he went to Mike Shanahan and had a list of plays that he and his dad had come up with that they weren't going to run anymore. And Shanahan said, well, we got this far doing what we do with you. If you can't play, we'll go with Kirk. Otherwise, we're going to run what we do. Okay. He ran what he did. It was really the running game that got them to the division title and into the playoffs. And then on his way to taking a 14-0 lead, he clearly re-injured the knee, tried to limp through the rest of the game. At one point, he was like limping down the field for like a 10-yard gain. It was crazy. And then at the end of the game, the knee blew out. He had the surgery. He insisted on coming back. He's now has said he should have sat out the year, but his ego wouldn't allow him to do it. His insecurity that Kirk Cousins was going to take his job, and came back, didn't play well. They benched him with 3 games to go, and Jay Gruden comes in. Jay Gruden immediately says, "Oh no, we can't turn him into a pocket passer. That's not who he is." And then in an interview a few days later, he gets word that, he needs to be turned into a pocket passer. So Jay Gruden says he's going to be a pocket passer, and he was terrible. And he benched him a couple of times. He got hurt. And at the end of the year, they decided, it really wasn't until the following year, to the beginning of the following year, that they finally agreed to move on, and Kirk Cousins was the starter. So the problem that one creates... That's you, Bobby. You're the one that created the problem. So if you want to stay away from you probably should do that. But these tweets that you send out always are good for a chuckle or two and filling up a few minutes of radio time, which is not a bad thing either. All right, coming up from the Green Light Podcast, which is hosted by Chris. Chris, what's his name? Chris Long, Howie Long's son. He had John Allen on now with the Minnesota Vikings, and he will lay out a lot of things that he felt about his time here. Not dirty laundry about how things turned around last year, and where he is going in his career with high hopes of getting some big numbers. We'll get to that and more as we continue. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
Well, it's turning out to be a very interesting day on the quarterback front. We told you at the start of the show that Joe Flacco is going back to the Cleveland Browns on a one-year deal with incentives that could be worth more than 3 times that. And looks like the Deshaun Watson disaster is finally washed ashore. He may try to play this year, but more than likely it's probably just going to be an IR year for him coming off the torn Achilles. So he's going back to Cleveland. And guess who's coming back to Washington? Josh Johnson. Now, Josh Johnson has played, I believe, in like 4 different leagues. He's played for well over a dozen NFL teams, or at least been to training camp with them. He has been in Washington before, and you remember that brutal year of 2018 when Alex Smith broke his leg, and they were trying everybody here. Mark Sanchez played, and Josh Johnson actually won a game as a starter at the end of that year against Tennessee, and he's still bouncing around the league. He was a backup in Baltimore last year. He may have even been there 2 years. But in 2022, he was with the San Francisco 49ers, as you may remember. And you recall the NFC Championship game against Philadelphia when they were down to Brock Purdy as the starter. Mr. Irrelevant finally got his chance because of injuries of quarterbacks before him. And he was good enough to, they thought, lead the 49ers to the Super Bowl, and might have, but suffered an elbow injury in the game. Johnson comes in. He gets a concussion, so Purdy's got to come back. He can't even throw. He's just going to hand off and run out the game. I mean, Josh Johnson conceivably could have taken the 49ers to the Super Bowl because their defense was awesome. They could have gone to the Super Bowl with Josh Johnson as the quarterback because Purdy wasn't going to play anymore that year. and he got hurt. And so a couple years in Baltimore. Now he's in Washington, and I assume that's going to be it. I assume it's going to be Marcus Mariota as the top backup, and Josh Johnson will be the veteran backup. Maybe there's not much guaranteed money. They just want to kick the tires on him. But it does look like they are, obviously looking for more mentorship for, not that he really needs it, for Jayden Daniels. Seems like he's got enough of it for Mariota. But I guess it doesn't hurt to have more veteran presence behind him. So Josh Johnson is coming here. No word on how much money he's getting. I'm sure it's the NFL veteran minimum, which ain't bad. I'm sure it's over $1 million. Anyway, John Allen, as you know, released by the Commanders, signed by the Minnesota Vikings. He was on the Green Light podcast hosted by Chris Long the other day, and they were talking about the craft, and it's pretty clear because Allen's a pretty good interview with the media. Not great, but pretty good. But when he's around a fellow player, he kind of lets his hair down a little bit, and it was really interesting to listen to some of this. And this is Allen on how people look at sacks.
Sacks are situational. I mean, if you look at a game and I had 2 sacks, that doesn't necessarily mean I had a great game. You know what I mean? Like, if I beat my guy every time but the quarterback gets rid of it quickly, that doesn't mean I had a bad game. You know what I mean? So it's hard to just focus on sacks. And it's tough because that's why we get paid. But, I mean, rushing as one, as an interior guy, if we're able to get the quarterback to move off his spot, make him have to hitch and try to, run outside or get to a secondary, that just helps everybody else. And when the ends are collapsing the pocket from the outside and we're getting that push inside, I like to say the quarterback decides who gets a sack at that point.
Yeah, the quarterback does decide. And, what you said, it definitely rings true. Like, sacks are certainly a measure of success, but there's no substitute for watching the tape.
Yeah.
And seeing, hey, what went on in this game? And, I'm sure you've had these days where you walk out and maybe you got a goose egg next to your name and people are like, my least favorite thing I'd hate to hear was, I didn't hear your name called all game on the broadcast. I'm like, who gives a flying what about the broadcast? They're watching the ball.
Yeah. I mean, unless you know someone who's played defensive line at a high level, most people don't know what they're looking at. Now, in today's age, you can look online and you can find people on Twitter who are trying to coach the position up. But even with my family, like, I had to coach them up. Like, just because I don't get a sack doesn't mean I'm not affecting the game. Some of the best games that I've ever played in my career, I haven't gotten a sack on. I've gotten quarterback hits, but I haven't gotten a sack, man. A sack, people don't understand how hard it is, man. If you play 700 snaps and you get 10 sacks, you're one of the best in the NFL.
In the world.
But just think about it. 10 sacks out of 600 reps. The percentage is so low. You got to beat your man. The quarterback has to hold the ball. You can't hit him below the knees or above the waist. The coverage in the back end has to hold up. Once you get there, I'm tackling a dude like Josh Allen, who's 6'5", 240, running a 4.5. So that's a whole new set of challenges. So there's so much that goes into it. That is, I don't want to say that it's not important because obviously it is. Like, if you go out the game and have 4 sacks, you had a great game. But there's so much that goes into it that the everyday fan doesn't understand. And honestly, I don't even blame them because there's just so much. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's hard to blame them.
So that's Chris Long and John Allen on the discussing of sacks. It reminds me a little bit of the line from Airplane, where the kid goes into the cockpit and says to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, "My dad says you don't play hard every night." And Kareem grabs him by the shirt collar and says, "Tell your dad to try and drag Walton and Lanier up the court every night for 40 minutes." So these are 2 warriors saying to the watching public from the couch, sitting on our tuchus, sack ain't as easy as you think it is, and it doesn't necessarily mean you played a great game just because you had a sack. So that was part of the podcast. This more from the Green Light. This is John Allen on what he saw this year in his rookie quarterback, Jayden Daniels.
When you have a guy like Jayden Daniels, it was we have him and you don't, and we knew we could rely on him. And I mean, he showed he can make the big plays when it counts. When they're able to bring more than you're able to block, and you can still scramble for 40 yards, it makes it challenging.
Well, it's like the end of the Tampa game with the game on the line, the quarterback run option. I mean, I hate to be a left end playing that kid.
What do you do? What do you do? Honestly, you just take your shot. That's all you can do. Take your shot where you make the play.
Is he really that, like, his stride in person? Zach called him the fastest guy in the field at times. It felt like when you see him in practice open up, is it like a deceptive stride that he's got?
Yeah. You remember in like Pee Wee football when every team would put their most athletic player at quarterback?
Yeah.
is like that, but then he also is a great passer. You know what I mean? So it's like he truly is a dual threat. You know what I mean? I mean, athletic wise, it's going to be tough to find a guy on the defense who can one-on-one make that play. That's why it's so important to play as 11 as one. Everyone has to be so disciplined with the cutbacks. Everyone has to be a force player, has to be guys running backside. It really is 11-on-1 effort. And when you get there, you got to be a sure tackler.
I thought y'all's group last year was a lot of fun to watch. I've always liked Fowler, and I was excited to see him have that success. And I'm a big Armstrong fan.
Yeah.
I think he's a dog. And I thought the play he made in Detroit in the red zone was one of the biggest of the year.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Getting the ball off Goff in a game where it's going to go back and forth.
I mean, they got some great players there. You know, I think we had times where we struggled last year, but that's the thing about the NFL. You could do everything right for 10 plays, and on the 11th play, one guy messes up and 60 out the gate. And that's kind of what we struggle with, just popcorn defense. One mistake here, one little mistake there, but then you go back and you look at the film and it's like we had 5 mistakes. But, I mean, I tell fans all the time, the difference between winning and losing is probably 5 or 6 plays. If they swing the other way, who knows what the momentum's going to be like, just how it just changes everything.
No question. I was going to ask you about the NFC Championship game. I was up there watching in Philly, and, you know, it felt like y'all's game plan was we're going to possess the football and, you know, we're going to make the most of our possessions and come up a little short on offense in a couple situations. That team was so good. They're like a wave. Once they get on you, it's really hard. The one question about that game I had, and hopefully you can look back and chuckle a little bit about this one sequence. Can you take me inside the moment where they're tush pushing and you guys are jumping and saying, we'll do it again. We'll do it again.
I mean,
what's happening?
That play is pretty, I mean, we all know it's pretty much unstoppable. And me being the nose guard right over the ball, it's like, I'm a sacrificial lamb, dude. Like, I'm not, like, I'm dang near laying on the ground before the play, just like, whatever happens, happens. Yeah. I mean, it's just such a tough play. It's like, you have to try to get any advantage you get. So, jumping over the pile, maybe hitting Jalen Hurts dissuades them from doing it. I mean, the whole league is searching for an answer to that play. So I think we stopped it a couple times last year more than anybody else. So, I mean, best advice, just don't let them get on the 1 yard line.
Yeah, like don't let them get in 3rd and short or 4th and short. Like get more aggressive on 3rd and medium, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. You have to. Or that.
Because they put it in the league meetings. They're proposing to get rid of it. Do you think they should get rid of it?
It depends. I just think, what is the goal? Are we trying to produce the best product? Because if you're asking my opinion, I think it's just an ugly play. Not safe. Chris Jones got
ugly
hurt
in 31 cities.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, it just Chris Jones got hurt in the Super Bowl because of it. I say just get rid of it. That's just my opinion.
All right, we got one vote in the column of get rid of it. Here's another thing I would like to get rid of, and maybe now that you're gone from Washington, you can agree with me, is that freaking stadium is like a public safety hazard. The damn stands were falling on Jalen Hurts. There was human feces coming out of pipes, rumored a couple years ago. What do we got to do to get a new stadium in Washington? And did you ever feel unsafe playing in that stadium?
I never felt unsafe, and I'll give a lot of credit to Mr. Harris. He came in and he did a lot of renovations.
Yeah.
The problem is, you know how it is in D.C., the politics. Yeah. I think D.C. owns RFK, so you have to go through them, and then you have to go through the government, and there's just so much going on. And we're like already landlocked in that area. We're playing in Maryland. We're practicing in Virginia with the DC. It's just so much going on. I can't imagine how long it's going to take. I'm probably going to say 10, 15, 20 years to get a stadium. I mean, who knows?
You'll come back and be recognized in the new stadium, and you'll be like, damn, this is state of the art. Why didn't they have that? But right now I think it's dangerous. That's just me talking. John didn't say it. I said it. I think it's damn dangerous, and they should put a new one up. The last player I wanted to ask you about in Washington is, I think this guy, Sanderstill, am I saying his name right?
Yeah, Mikey Sanderstill.
Is he a dog or what?
He's an animal, dude. Like, I never forget. Coach Saban called him, I don't know how he said it. He either said, like, pound over pound, the best player in the draft, or his favorite player in the draft, something like that. I mean, he's 5'10". I don't know how much he weighs, maybe 180. And he's just a dog. I love Mikey. I love playing beside him. It was so fun.
Is he pretty versatile? Did he seem to be a guy his first year that was willing to do whatever for the defense? Is kind of the idea I got about him.
I mean, he's almost like a Swiss Army knife. He could play corner, which he did. I mean, he's a phenomenal nickel. I'm sure he could play safety for a little bit if he needed to. I mean, these guys coming out of college are just so pro-ready nowadays. Like, just because college is pretty much a pro at this point. I mean, it really is impressive. These guys, these rookies are coming in, spending so much money on their bodies. Already have financial guys, nutritionists. They're just so much more prepared than the NFL than I was, and probably you were. Like, coming in your year, first time having money, you had no idea what was going on. Like, you're just out, just head spinning, trying to survive. These guys are coming in as pros.
Well, all the stuff they do to take care of their body, you just talked about it. It's like they're already in the league and their training regiments are already. But that's Bama, like at UVA at Virginia. We're still an ACC school here,
still a little behind.
You're still a little behind. So I was wishing when I found out that you were from Ashburn, I was like, what were we doing? We never called you.
You guys did, but for the longest, I wanted to go to Virginia Tech. And they took their offer away from me twice because they said I was too small. To this day, I never forget that.
Yeah, well, you and I hate him now.
Never forget that.
Jeez. He wanted to go to Virginia Tech. Well, Virginia Tech, he's not Steph Curry, but Steph Curry wanted to go to Virginia Tech. Seth Greenberg said he could be a preferred walk-on. Wounds up going to Davidson, and the rest is history. John Allen, certainly not at the level in football that Steph is in basketball, but it's another guy who wanted to go to Virginia Tech. And where does he go? The place where the best go, Alabama, to win national championships. That's crazy how this recruiting is. But I guess, it's such an inexact science, just like the draft, that maybe you can't project how good a guy is going to be in college. The interesting thing about Allen is that he slid down to number 17 in the draft when the Redskins took him in 2017. And he had been projected to be a top 10 pick. And one of the things they were concerned about was he had had a couple of shoulder surgeries while at Alabama, and they didn't think he was going to hold up. Well, he did have the torn pec muscle this year, missed some of his rookie year with a broken foot, but otherwise he's been pretty healthy throughout his career. And now he's finished 8 years, and he's looking at playing maybe another 8, maybe 9, he said. This was his goal, his individual goal, as he told Chris Long at the end of the Green Light podcast.
I would like to get to 100 sacks. I'm at 41 right now. That's like the big number to like solidify yourself as one of the best pass rushers. So,
yeah,
I mean, based on the number I want to hit, I've already told myself I need at least 8 to 9 more years, averaging about 7. If I can do that, that'll put me close to my number. So that's the plan.
Man. And you feel good. You feel good physically. You feel fresh and like you want to play a long time.
I feel good. Ever since like my 2 years ago, I've always decided that I think I want to be like that guy that plays like 16, 17, kind of like Calais Campbell. I definitely see myself in that role, but I mean, only God knows, you know what I mean? It comes down to how does my body feel? Lord willing, if I win a Super Bowl in the next 2-3 years, who knows how I'll feel after that. But until I even get to that game, it's like, I have to give it everything I got to get to that opportunity.
John Allen now with the Minnesota Vikings on the Green Light podcast with Chris Long, looking to play another 8-9 years. That would be something. And at that position where you take such a beating, man, that would be incredible. And he obviously is durable and resilient. He came back from a torn pec muscle during the season. A lot of guys don't do that. In fact, most guys don't do that. But he did, and he came back and played pretty well at the end of the season and in that playoff game against the Philadelphia Eagles, and now he's moving on. It was the right thing for the team to do because they could have renegotiated a contract, but the contract that he was under was going to pay him a lot of money, and they just can't tie up that much cash on the defensive line. Coming up, Dan Quinn, good stuff from a podcast that he does that's hosted by Alex Smith and Shane Battier. We'll get to that and more as we continue. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
In my 48 years of radio, I have met a handful of people who I would walk through fire for. And the reason I would do that is not only are they good people, but they're people who come through for you when you need them and you least expect it. And one of the best I've ever worked with is Mel Kiper Jr., who I love dearly, and contacted him this week. Understandably, he's very busy getting ready for the draft, but I said, if you had some time, could you pop on? And sure enough, he called during the commercial. So, Mel, thank you very much. It's so good to talk to you again.
Andy, anytime I can find time. I had a 3-round mock Field Yates and I were doing. It began at 9 o'clock, and I thought it could go 2-3 hours. So if we have another taping at 11:30, so I said there was no way I was going to call you last night. I didn't think we'd get done in time, so we got done very quickly because we knew we were taking. We made the picks happen fast. So I said, let me take a shot, call Andy, and you made it happen, pal. You're the one we're able to. I didn't think it would work, but I said I'll take a shot. Why not? And here we are.
You've been in the radio business a long time. We fill air. There's a lot of time for babbling. So always glad to do this. This is very strange this year because we've been doing these things both locally and nationally for like 30 years. And most years I say, well, they're picking number 2. They're picking number 3. They really need a quarterback. Who are they going to take? Picking at 29, this is rare territory for this franchise. When's the last time you can – I guess it would be like the Super Bowl years with Gibbs where you're projecting at this level, right?
I don't really think about it like that, Andy, because you just go year to year. But you're right, and that's what happens when you get a Jayden Daniels. You get a quarterback like Jayden who you hit the jackpot with, and he develops into maybe the next Patrick Mahomes and can be one of the great quarterbacks of all time because he's showing that he can. Look at Mahomes is. He's regarded right up there near the top. So Can Jayden do that? We'll see. I think the expectations are going to be that he can win some, maybe multiple Super Bowls. So, with Jayden Daniels now, Andy, the days of picking in the top 5, 10 are over. It seems like unless you get hit with a lot of injuries, which can happen in football. But when you have a great quarterback like Jayden, you're going to have a lot of success. Yeah, and I don't know, Mel, if this is it's only 1 year sample, but the 4 quarterbacks who played last year played well, and we never really got to see J.J. McCarthy except in preseason, and reports were he looked pretty good there. The bust risk now at the top of the draft with quarterbacks seems lessened because they stay longer in college, or is it too early to make a proclamation like that? Probably a little too early, but your point's well taken because now we're talking about being able to, like Bo Nix. Bo Nix, when he was at Auburn, did not look like a successful starting quarterback in the NFL. After he was, coming out of high school, everybody was talking about him as being a great one. It just didn't work out. Now, we saw glimpses of incredible plays at Auburn. He made a play against LSU, which was one for the books, and he goes out to Oregon, and in 2 years. And I think the key thing is here, Andy, staying for that final year. When you transfer, don't just come out after the first year. If Jayden would have come out after his first year at LSU, he would have been a 3rd or 4th round pick. Burrow would have been a 5th round pick. You go back to guys that were Baker was a 3rd round pick the year before he ended up doing really well. So I think staying that additional year, particularly for Jayden, and I remember talking to his mom about it. I mean, they were thinking seriously about coming out. And it was really a tough decision for them to stay, but they did. I spent hours telling them, you got to stay, you got to stay, you got to stay, and you can do this, you can do this, you can do this. So I was really satisfied and thankful that they listened and they made all they did. Regina did her due diligence with Jayden, and they made the right decision. Can you imagine if they didn't? I mean, you're a 3rd round pick and you're Jayden Daniels, and we've been saying, how the heck did that happen, right? But he goes back, he wins a Heisman, Johnny United's Golden Arm Award, he's a 2nd pick, and here he is with Washington doing great. So I agree with you 100. The kids stay. I've been screaming about this, as you know, since 1997 when we were at our radio down at the Zone. Yeah. Stay as long, get as many reps. Don't rush the judgment. It's the NFL. This is the best in the world. Why in the world would you, even if you're going to be a top pick, say Peyton went back and stayed another year when he didn't have to. So it's benefited just about everybody, Andy. Well, as you know, Regina is now certified as an agent, and I think the only right thing to do is when Jayden signs that 2nd contract, did you get a major cut of that? I think that. Yeah, I'm satisfied just knowing that they did the right thing, and she really. I mean, I was on the phone and she asked a lot of questions. And Regina is a smart football. I mean, she knows her football, and she loves Jayden, and she's a great mom to Jayden. So Jayden should be happy that he had somebody doing all that work and spending all that time and asking all those questions, because that's what you got to do. And ultimately made a great decision. So you do your work, you make all the calls, talk to Herm Edwards a lot, called a lot of different people, and like I say, made the right decision after all was said and done. Yeah, she's looking out for the son too. Remember, she put out something that the ladies should keep their hands off him, and she was sitting between him and Juju Watkins at a basketball game. So yeah, good for her, and she's handling the whole thing. We're talking to the great Mel Kiper Jr. here on the Andy Pollin Show, and we move to what could happen at 29. I don't think these will necessarily be recognizable names, but still a lot of needs on defense, maybe even an offensive player that they would be looking at. What do you think the Commanders are looking at 29? Well, I
would think, Andy, when you look at that particular pick, and it's so late, an edge rusher obviously would have to be in the mix. A big corner and a fast running back if they could get one. But you think about where we are right now in terms of the late first round, I think Shamar Stewart is the wild card of this draft. I don't necessarily think he'll be there. I gave him to Washington. You don't know where he's going to go and you say, well, why is he so hard to predict? Well, he's got everything you want. When you draw up the perfect defensive end for the NFL, it's Shamar Stewart. Mm-hmm. I mean, he is big, fast, athletic, strong. He's got it all. He looks the part. He's the LTPer of that defensive end spot, but he doesn't have the production. And that's the thing. When I went back and looked at games, you say, well, production can be deceptive. The guys are getting the ball out so quick. Maybe he got in there, he penetrated, he got off the edge, and he was right there, but he was just close but didn't get it. There were too many guys that I've called AOGs and other occupation guys that were blocking him and handling him. And I say, when you get to the best in the world, are you going to expect him to go from 1.5 sacks each of the last 3 years, no sacks over the last 7 games the last 3 years, to being a guy who can get double-digit sacks in the NFL? And now some have. Danielle Hunter, not many sacks at LSU, 99 career sacks right now. Oh, wait. No sacks his final year at Penn State, 10 last year. But, again, I think Shamar Stewart, if he's around, would be interesting. I like Donovan Ezeraku from Boston College a lot. Could Michael Williams from Georgia be there? Maybe he could. So it's going to be interesting. Corners like Maxwell Hairston may be there as well.
Mm-hmm. I wonder about the depth of this, too, because Adam Peters comes from 2 organizations who I think you would agree really have understood the draft over the years, the Patriots and the 49ers. He's got 5 picks this year because of the deals he made for Deebo Samuels and Marshawn Lattimore and Laramie Tunsil. And I don't have any real disagreement with that, although the jury's kind of still out on Lattimore. But with only 5 picks, and I don't know how much demand there would be there at 29, if he does trade down, is there real value this year later in the draft?
Yeah, I think there's some depth at a number of positions, Andy. It's I said underwhelming at some spots. It is. Mm-hmm. But is there going to be a team that's going to sit there and say, we got to get a Tyler Shuck, quarterback out of Louisville, or we have to go get a Jalen Milroe, quarterback out of Alabama? So those are the 2. If Jackson Dart slides past the Rams, then Jackson Dart from Ole Miss could be a quarterback somebody looks to move in to the late first round to acquire. So It could be where Washington is sitting at the right spot at the right time with 3 quarterbacks still on the board, assuming Shedeur is gone, and we expect Shedeur maybe 9 to New Orleans or at worst 21 to Pittsburgh. So definitely if Shedeur were around, you'd be getting calls, but I think Shedeur will be gone, obviously Ward number 1. So with those other quarterbacks like Dart, like you say, Milroe and Shuck, 2 of those 3 will be there, maybe all 3. That would be great for Washington because they will be fielding calls, I believe, from the Giants, Cleveland, and maybe even New Orleans. If they don't take the quarterback at 9, there will be some teams looking to jump in there to get one of those quarterbacks.
I mean, I think that I think you've said this and others have said this. If this were any other year, all of these quarterbacks that we're talking about in the first round, maybe except for Cam Ward, wouldn't go in the first round. Is that accurate?
Well, he wouldn't go as high as the guys last year. He would have been behind. Like Cam Ward would have been behind on grade. And it's hard to do revisionist history because you know what these guys did, and it's a different year. Mm-hmm. But certainly Cam Ward, by the way, was a 3rd-round pick going into this year. He was like Jayden. He benefited from going to Miami. Now, he only had the 1 year there, but he had 2 at Washington State after being an incarnate word. So at the end of the day, that's another guy that benefited tremendously. But in terms of where they would have been behind, obviously Drake and Jayden and Caleb, that was the top 3. And then would he have been ahead of Bo Nix? Remember, Bo Nix, this time last year, we were wondering if he'd be a first-round pick. And I had him at 12, and people told me I was crazy, and I'm going 12 because Sean Payton loved him, right? Sean Payton, Adam Schefter told this story yesterday. He thought about trading down. He was but he got scared when Penix was taken. And he said, I can't do that now. So again, he was going to try to roll the dice to pick up an extra 2 or 3 and still hopefully get Penix. So I mean, supposed to get Bo Nix. So Bo Nix and Penix were surprises last year. They weren't to me at Bo Nix. Like I said, I had 3.0, mock 3.0. I had him going there, and I got talked out of it. Penix was a surprise because of the durability concern, and especially to Atlanta having Kirk Cousins. So to answer the question, Cam Ward would have been probably with J.J. McCarthy right in that grouping in terms of grade, Andy, but certainly not up anywhere near those top 3.
Well, just I know this because I lived in San Antonio. It's incarnate word, and when I was there, Mel, 40 years ago, it was a girls' school. And to think we're going to have a quarterback maybe take a number one who played there. I mean, it's mind-blowing what happens with places like that.
I used to just put, Andy, INC word, like ink word. I didn't know how to pronounce it. And so it's incarnate word. I'll remember that, Andy, for draft. I will Don't get it wrong on draft day now. Incarnate Word.
Incarnate Word. And more trivia about Incarnate Word. You probably know this. Ricky Williams was a coach there. Do you know that?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So now you're fully up to speed on Incarnate Word, and when you talk about him being drafted, you can throw that in. The other thing about trading
pronunciation guide for the day.
There you go. I'll be your phone a friend if you run into trouble during the draft. But the other thing about trading down. You know the story, and you've said this many times, that Bill Walsh understood the draft better than anybody. You know, he was going to take Joe Montana in the 5th round and got nervous and took him in the 3rd.
Well, you know, it's funny, Eddie, because you look back to those drafts and you say, boy, how things went. He got Dwight Clark. They were looking at Steve Fuller. Remember that story?
Yep.
And Dwight Clark, I'll catch some passes from Steve Fuller. They were teammates at Clemson, right? So he was looking at Fuller. Montana was in that draft. Remember, Jack Thompson went in the top group of that top part of that draft out of Washington. They're throwing Samoan to the Cincinnati Bengals, right? He had the big arm and all that. And then Steve Fuller went in the 1st round to Kansas City, right around that 20-21 area. But they got Dwight Clark in the 10th round, which doesn't even exist anymore. It's a 7-round draft. Yeah. They took Dwight Clark in the 10th round because of a pro day, basically workout for Steve Fuller that they were at, and they kind of liked Dwight a little bit more than they thought. And they said, oh, well, they get this guy. Didn't take Fuller and ended up with Joe Montana in the 3rd round. So it is, and Joe Montana, when he came out, by the way, was 6'2", 6'1 3/4", 6'2", 195, okay?
Yeah.
5'5", 5040, okay? And then not a great arm. So, again, it's this Shedeur Sanders talk is mind-boggling when you look back at the quarterbacks that played really well in this league and it didn't have the rocket arm or the 4.6 speed or the imposing size.
I'm glad you brought up Shedeur because this is mind-blowing for some with his dad. He's not very fast. And I've heard Steve Young say this a number of times, that the game has changed to the point where if Dan Marino or Peyton Manning came into today's game, they would not be what they were. They would struggle with the game the way it's played. You got to be able to run. How much stock do you put into that? Is that the way people have to look at quarterbacks now? That if you can't run, you're really at a severe disadvantage?
Well, Kirk Cousins made a lot of money not running.
True.
You know?
True.
I mean, he made a lot of money not running. I mean, there's a lot of quarterbacks. I mean, I don't think you look at the NFL right now and you say when a 44-year-old quarterback not long ago could win a Super Bowl, and it's Tom Brady he was a 5'2", 440 coming out of college. What do you think he was now? So to me, and it's you made a great point, Andy, about Deion. You know, he was fast, right? Great, and Shedeur's not fast. Well, how about Archie Manning? He could move around, right?
Yep.
Peyton, no, right?
Yep.
How about Cooper Manning? Cooper Manning was a wide receiver. Arch Manning's a quarterback who can run. So Arch can run. We'll watch him this year at Texas, but Peyton certainly. And remember, Andy, I told this story. I was getting calls. This is not revisionist history. In real time that year, I got calls after Peyton Manning's pro day of people, and this is in the league now, personnel people in the league, saying his pro day was horrible. He was bouncing passes, couldn't throw a spiral, all wobbly balls, and they said to me, if his name was Peyton Jones, he'd be a 3rd-round pick. This was back in real time when he was picked. So a lot of these people in the league didn't love Peyton Manning then because he didn't have the mobility or the arm strength that a lot of people wanted. How'd that work out? Ryan Leaf, half the league liked better than Peyton Manning for that reason. Leaf, bigger, stronger, much stronger arm, and could move around better than Peyton. So at the end of the day, even though he was more of a pocket guy, so I think Shedeur certainly can play. I get it. He's 6'1.5", 212. Okay, Brady was 6'4", 211 coming out, but Brady had a 24 vertical and a 5'2", 440. Drew Brees went in the 2nd round because he wasn't very big and didn't have a strong arm.
Yeah.
How'd that work out? So at the end of the day, I think you can win from the pocket. It's like with people, if you want the 4'6", 40 guy and the rocket arm and the 6'3", 6'4", frame. They were talking about Jayden being too light last. What does Jayden weigh? They pick apart everybody's being picked apart, Andy. At the end of the day, Shedeur is going to go somewhere in the 1st round. I hope as you know, a Raven fan, right? I'm a Raven fan. I hope he doesn't go to Pittsburgh. I don't want to see him with Mike Tomlin in Pittsburgh.
You think he could be starting that early? That he could possibly start this year? Because it looks like they're waiting for Aaron Rodgers. But if he goes to Pittsburgh and Rodgers doesn't, you think Shedeur could conceivably start there this year?
I think Shedeur would be. All these young quarterbacks start at some point.
Yeah,
they all do. I mean, we talk about they need to sit, watch, and learn. Well, they don't sit, watch, and learn. Once in a while, they do. I mean, Patrick Mahomes sat for a year. People forget Patrick Mahomes didn't play as a rookie. Played one game at the end when Alex Smith was the quarterback. So again, they redshirted Patrick Mahomes.
Sure.
So again, when you look at quarterbacks now, they are being forced in there because they're just flat out better, and they got to move forward with that guy. But in terms of if it was Pittsburgh and Aaron Rodgers, yeah, Aaron Rodgers is the guy for a year, and we don't know how long that year will go. We don't know what level Aaron Rodgers will play at. Will he build on what happened last year, where he looked pretty good towards the end, or who knows? But Shador, 9 to New Orleans, 21 to Pittsburgh. If he gets past Pittsburgh, you're in no man's land. Do the Rams take him? That's debatable. Then he becomes, and I said this all for the last month, the sliding quarterbacks. I went back to 1970. 6 of the 8 have hit. So, I had Boomer Esiason third on my big board, and he went in the second round. I had Favre at 14. He went second round. Okay? I had Chad Pennington at 6. He went 18. So I went back to the sliding quarterbacks, and they all, 6 of the 8. The only 2 that didn't hit were 2 Notre Dame guys. Jimmy Clausen, we remember him very well, I know I do, and Brady Quinn. They were the only 2 that slid from grade or mocked. Geno Smith was mocked in the top 10, ended up in the second round. So, again, you'll just look back at history. 6 of the 8 sliders from 1970 based on grade and mock turned out really good.
A couple of quick things before I let you go, Mel, and it's great to always talk to Mel Kiper. Charlie Ward. Charlie Ward, 1993. Was also a basketball player, had a nice career in the NBA, mostly with the Knicks, was the Heisman Trophy winner at Florida State, and said, if you don't pick me in the first round, I'm going to play basketball, which is exactly what happened. If Charlie Ward comes out today with the skills that he has, how high does he get drafted?
Oh, I love Charlie Ward. I remember meeting him at BWI Airport. I was going somewhere, and they were Florida State basketball team. Because I'm probably heading up to Connecticut and they were coming back from wherever because it was college basketball season, right? And met Charlie. I remember the PR director brought him over. The football contact brought him over. I met Charlie Ward then, and that was great. Again, where would he have gone? Pretty high, because guess what? You could win with Charlie Ward in the NFL. Had he been a quarterback now. So. Yeah, he would have been very attractive to NFL teams.
How about his arm? We know he could run, and he obviously succeeded in the college game, but how would his arm stack up?
I thought it was good enough, and I know Bobby Bowden even said at the time. Remember, he said, "I just want to let him go. You just got to let Charlie play. You can't have the same offense with Charlie Ward you did with everybody else. This guy's special." And once they did that, and he kind of was unleashed and just doing his thing, that he was outstanding. Charlie Ward was a great quarterback at the collegiate level. I wish there's a couple guys you're kind of not frustrated, but disappointed that as football guys, Andy. It was Charlie Ward that didn't have a chance to show what he could do at quarterback, and Kirk Gibson. I wanted to play wide receiver in the NFL. I wrote him up. He was a great receiver at Michigan State, but he was a great player with the Dodgers. But he was one. Kirk Gibson was a wide receiver in the NFL. I think even Arizona might even have drafted him just to get his rights, and it didn't work. I think it was him in the 9th round. But Charlie Ward was the other, certainly, that would have been, I thought, a heck of a quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah, okay. And it just shows you how times have changed. There was still the bias against African-American quarterbacks, but at that time, a running quarterback was seen as a negative, and now, of course, it's seen as a positive. And the last thing is, long overdue, as I'm sure you'll agree, that Brent Musburger is getting the Pete Rozelle Radio and TV Award at the Hall of Fame. That's one omission. The last omission is you. And others have said this. You need to get that, Mel, and hopefully that happens sooner rather than later.
No, I don't. Andy, I don't want any awards.
I know you don't. But
I feel very uncomfortable even talking about that, as you know, because you know where you were back in the day and where you came from, and what had to happen to get you to this point. I was really lucky and very fortunate to have great people around me, great opportunities. Working with you all those years at the Zone taught me so. I had no clue about doing a show. We were doing a 4-hour radio show on all sports. Are you kidding me? You carried me through those 4 hours. I'm sitting there talking about the NBA, college basketball, boxing, hockey, tennis, golf, and I'm sitting there saying, "You got to be kidding me!" Andy Poe and 4 hours, not 2 or 3 hours. Tony Kornheiser said 3 hours, no more than 3. We were doing 10 to 2 every Saturday and Sunday for all those years, Andy. I tell you, you should be in the
No. I was talking about this earlier.
Prior to Mel coming along, Pete Rozelle would write the names of the picks on a chalkboard in a ballroom. And now it's a major television extravaganza. And maybe you don't get 100% of the credit for it, but you get a big part of it. So I know you're going to be modest on this, but Dan Patrick said last year, my goal is to get Brent Musburger in the Hall of Fame. My goal is to get Mel Kiper in the Hall of Fame.
Don't stop trying, pal. Don't do that to me.
Hey, look.
Don't do that to me. You're a good friend. Don't do that to me, okay?
All right.
I just remember the days at the Zone. There were some of the. We had so much.
We had
fun.
fun.
The families would all. Your family come over. My family would have. We had so much fun down at the Zone all those years. And like I said, I just remember it like it was yesterday. And it was 1998. It's amazing how many years. How these years fly by.
It is. Well, we're both grandfathers now, so mazel tov to both of us. And when you get to the draft, it's incarnate word, and you don't have to give me any credit for it.
I'll thank Grandpa for that.
There you go. Mel, thanks as always. Best of luck with the draft. We'll catch up soon.
You're the best, Andy. Take care, pal.
Thanks. That's the great Mel Kiper Jr. Boy, that's fun. And it's so wonderful that he was able to do that because, again, we had the scheduling stuff with all the things he has to do with ESPN. Bram is coming up next. I will see you back here on Monday morning at 9 a.m.